All right, welcome back to another episode of Thrivers Ed. Today we are talking about the 4 steps to client attraction because, we are here to make income and impact, and part of that means we have to have clients that we are here to serve. And so I brought on an absolute expert to talk with us today, Hailey Rowe. Hailey is a marketing and sales strategist, coach, and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. Since 2010, Hailey has worked in the coaching world and in business development and in marketing for startups, and she helps sobriety coaches, life coaches, and wellness professionals make more sales, get time back, and overcome social media overwhelm. She shares her FAST framework, FAST, her marketing and her business tips in her Health Coach Nation podcast, which is a top 1.5% podcast according to Listen Notes, and in her Free Marketing Hub Facebook group. She's been named one of the top 25 coaches in Chicago and one of the top 6 business podcasts for health coaches. Hailey, thanks so much for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I am too, because honestly, however we feel about sales at the end of the day, we can't have a business unless we're actually bringing them in. We're just running a charity otherwise. And I think for a lot of people, it's not something that comes natively and it can feel kind of gross or icky, especially because we see a lot of those gross, icky tactics out there. And so I'm really excited to bring you in as a professional to make this more comfortable and so that we can sustain these businesses. But I'm really curious. I find that most people I bring in, almost everybody I bring in, this is not how they intentionally started, or this isn't always the
hmm
dream or the direction or the vision. So talk to me, how did you end up becoming, like a sales and client attraction specialist?
Yeah. So I originally started selling fitness DVDs back in high school, and I was an old soul, and I was thinking, I need to do something because I was always a theater nerd. And I'm like, all right, I need to exercise. So I started selling fitness DVDs of all things because that was just what I decided to do. And then in college, that kind of got me interested in sales and interested in the wellness world. I got my bachelor's degree in entrepreneurship. And then after college, I worked in business development and marketing for startups, and they happened to be in the wellness field. So I loved that because I got to learn a lot about digital marketing, copywriting, and do it in a field that I was passionate about. But as you know, things don't go as planned a lot of the time. And one of the companies that I worked for had to let everybody go in one day. And it was unexpected. They were not going to be able to open at the timeline they thought because they weren't getting approved. And that is when I decided, well, I might as well have my own business and work one-on-one with wellness professionals, coaches, and mindset coaches, people of that nature, people who are making the world a better place. But let's face it, many of us get into this field and you don't realize you're going to have to learn marketing, sales, how to put yourself out there. That's not the part you love. And that was the part that I got to experience working in the startups. So I figured I might as well help people with that. And so that's what I've been doing since 2017.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine in startups, like that's really that's how we take something from a startup to a business is you have to be able to sell. You have to be able to show people a vision that's not necessarily there to get them willing to invest in something so that it can actually continue. And I've said before, and my mentor said too, that, when you're a coach, you're at least 51% marketer, like you have to be
Mhm.
able to communicate your value to help people see what's possible for themselves and willing to take you on really to accept that kind of risk, I think, is ultimately what we're looking at when we're looking at sales, so that we can continue, so we can actually serve them and, like you said, make the world a better place. So,
Mhm.
how do we do this? I'm laughing
Yeah.
because it's like it just feels so amorphous. Like, what should we be doing?
Yeah. Well, the way that I like to explain marketing is in 4 steps. I call it the 4 steps of client attraction. And they are connect, engage, pre-offer, and sell. So with connect, what I mean by that, anytime you are trying to take a stranger to a client, the first step is we need to be visible. We need to be able to be found. So whether that's you taking the initiative and maybe you are going to do a workshop in your local community or partner with somebody online and do a guest collaboration together, or you're going to connect with people on Instagram, or you're going to work on your Google SEO. All of these things can be a way to be visible. So we need to decide how are you going to be visible, and then we need to engage with our audience. So what that means is we need to ask an intentional question that allows us to understand our audience, allows us to know what they would find useful, what kind of things do they want to see from us so we can deliver on that. Then we make what we call a pre-offer, which is a way to give a quick win or solve a problem up front. And that can be through a lead magnet. That can be through, you doing a guest training for somebody's audience or something like that. But basically, once we know what people want, we have to give that back and have that opportunity to deepen the know, like, and trust. And then we invite to the sales phase. And that is where we have a discovery call. Maybe you have a webinar when you transition into your offer, or you have an email funnel that does a lot of the selling for you. And we need to invite to that stage after people have, you know, gotten something out of our free content. So those, in a nutshell, that is where we should be focusing our time. Now, as far as how you go about that, we can dive deeper into some options, but one thing I just want to share is you could also take these 4 steps and apply it with collaborations and partnerships. So instead of directly reaching out to somebody on Instagram, you could reach out to a collab partner who has a similar audience to you and say, would you be open to collaborating? And then from there, maybe you guys share each other's lead magnets with each other's audiences, or maybe you do a guest training for their audience, or maybe you are on their podcast and vice versa, or something like that. So it can kind of go both ways, meaning we can reach out and connect directly with your ideal clients, or we can connect with power player partners and take the same approach.
Yeah, because either way, at the beginning of this, you're saying that we need to connect with people. It's that getting visible. And
Mhm.
I actually was going to ask you kind of your thoughts on social media, but you even started this with different ways that we can be visible, right? It is workshops in your area, or, you did say Instagram, and obviously you're a LinkedIn specialist as well.
Mhm.
But I was just curious your thoughts on using social media
Yeah.
as the means of getting visible. And I ask this because a lot of my clients come to me and they don't want to use social media. They hate posting.
Hmm.
I was telling my email list the other day that reach is down 12% year over year on Instagram, and it's continuing to trend downwards. And
Mm.
I myself pulled away. So do you see social media still being a strong means of that connect piece?
Yeah, so to me, social media is a passive method. It is something where if you're just posting, right?
Mhm.
Because you post and like 6% of your audience sees it and that's it. Versus if you are actively connecting with people, building community, building relationships. Like for LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn because it's a networking platform. So I can go on there, send connection requests, meet my ideal clients by searching them in the search bar because I know their job title, or meet my ideal collab partners because I know their job titles, and be more productive with the time spent there because I'm actually connecting. I'm actually inviting people to my lead magnet or a collab chat or something like that, as opposed to hoping and waiting that people find me through my post and that's it. So social media to me is a long-term game if you're just going to be posting versus if you're actually connecting with people, building relationships in a classy way, you can move things along a lot faster. I think that's even how we connected, Marcy, is we were in some kind of bundle or summit together. I saw your profile somehow and I said, "Hey, I think we're a part of this other thing together. Would it make sense to connect and collaborate further?" So you just never know. Where those conversations, that was maybe a 2-step conversation and then we had a call and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. I really love using some form of collaborations to help grow a business. I think it's effective. We get to leverage some of that borrowed trust, right? Your audience trusts you, my audience trusts me. And so when we're partnered together, we get to leverage some of that. And it can make a lot of sense. And I'm really interested too in your approach on LinkedIn. I think it can make, actually, I don't know. This is going to be my naivety, so feel free to correct me here, but
Mhm.
it makes sense. I can see why you would use this and you can find people because they are trying to actively grow a business. But if you're serving an audience that isn't thinking at all about business,
Mhm.
right? You're a health coach. You help people
Yeah.
lose weight or quit drinking or change some other aspect of their mindset or life. Does LinkedIn still work for this as well?
Yeah. So you have to do two options. One, make a list of all your potential collaboration partners, people who complement what you do. And for a sobriety coach, for example, maybe you would work with counselors. Maybe you would work with, if they are taking a holistic approach and they're doing some kind of other wellness modality, somebody who does that. Or podcast hosts about the topic of addiction or things like that. So you can use LinkedIn to meet power player partners, get in front of many people at once that are your audience, right? And then if you wanted to find ideal clients, obviously you're not going to be able to search on LinkedIn, does this person have an alcohol problem? However, you could look at high stress jobs where you could even research what jobs tend to have the most people who struggle with alcohol. And you can still send a connection request. However, you're not going to assume and send a message, hey, do you have an alcohol problem? No, you're going to have them in your network. They're going to see your posts. You're going to start a dialogue by saying, you know, it's great to connect. I'd love to hear more about you. I saw you're a fellow professional in the blah, blah, blah area, wherever you guys live, or whatever you guys have in common. Maybe you have mutual connections. Maybe you went to the same college, maybe of clients who work in that field, whatever, but find some kind of common ground if you can. If not, it's fine. And then ask, hey, I want to post content here on LinkedIn now that we're connected, that would be beneficial to stressed out professionals, people who are really busy, or people who may have habits they want to break. Is there any kind of content you'd find super useful here on LinkedIn? Or is there any, goals you have when it comes to, you know, your personal habits or something like that? So you can kind of ask a question that would open up a dialogue and allow you also, you could just introduce yourself and say, here's what I do, would love to hear what you do, would love to keep each other in mind for referrals, something like that. But it can work for both cases if you're B2B or B2C. It's just if you're B2C, you may want to do more of the collaboration outreach.
When you phrase it like that, it sounds friendly and like, it sounds like a true invitation because what I've actually seen come through a lot is I'll get messages, specifically on LinkedIn is where I tend to get a lot of cold outreach or via
Hmm.
email. And it just feels like you read it and you're like, oh, they're trying to sell me something. Like it's just even without them being like, I have this perfect offer. There's a difference, I think. And maybe I'm not asking this question very clearly, and maybe you can help me figure out what the difference is between these two. But
Yeah.
sometimes I get the vibe, and I don't know what specifically it is, but it
Hmm.
makes me think this person wants to sell me, and maybe it's even just their title, where it's like, I
Yeah.
help coaches make money. Like, okay, I know why you're talking to me.
Yeah.
Um, so maybe, yeah, in that
Yeah,
amorphous
I get what
question,
you're
like,
saying. Yeah. So it's all about your feeling behind sending the message, and it will come through. So I like to lead with curiosity, with interest, with playfulness, with, questions and not assuming. And you really have to do it that way. And it makes such a difference in the wording. Like if I say, not sure if this resonates, not sure if you're looking to do XYZ, but I'd love to blah, blah, blah. That sounds way different than you should tell me what kind of content you want to see, or, you should come to my master class or whatever. Like it does make a difference. And I also think shorter is better because so many people, how many times do we get a long pitch and they're telling our, things we didn't even ask about the person and they're just spilling it. And we're like, I never asked you about your story. I never asked you about your credentials. I never, it's like, why are you telling me all of this? Right? So questions are really important. And that is step two of the four steps of client attraction. And I give examples of intentional questions in my freebie. If you want to check it out, it's haileyrowe.com/client hyphen attraction. But mastering good questions is going to be important.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they teach you when you're getting certified as an ICF coach, and it's all about the questions that you're asking. And I think that can cause a lot of people to freeze up of just how exactly can I actually ask these questions. And that was going to be my next question to you too, is around, if the second step is engage, like what do you do if your
Mhm.
audience isn't responding to you? They never reply in the comments, they don't answer your emails when you ask for feedback, like whatever that is. But maybe what I'm hearing is it's really in how we ask the question that's going to determine whether or not
Mhm.
we're really going to get a response. Is that fair?
Yeah, you might have to test different questions. So, I mean, I've asked everything from what are you working on these days? Something very simple to, not sure if you have any goals around client attraction, but if you do, I'd love to hear more about them because I might have a podcast or a free resource or something to help. So, you got to test different ways to go about it. Also, if nobody's engaging, you have to look at, okay, first of all, how consistent am I being? Because some people say that and they've only sent one email to their list or they've posted once every 3 weeks. So it's like, okay, of course, you're not going to get a lot of engagement. And then I think the other thing is to think about what are you listening? Like if you aren't getting feedback, you may need to go do some research to find out what your people really want, where you're missing the mark. So you might want to go look at like Reddit or Facebook groups or podcasts that are successful in your field and look at what questions people are asking. Look at what they're posting and needing help with. And see, am I on point with that or am I kind of making up what I think they want and not really hitting the mark?
I think that's fantastic advice, especially when my early in my career, I was helping people around alcohol, and they're not going to reply to your post saying, like, yes, I have an alcohol problem. Like, that's a
Right.
private issue, but
Hmm.
they may post anonymously in a Reddit forum. And when they're posting and asking questions, it's in their own language. And then we get to parrot
Hmm.
that back to them to say that I see you, I understand you, and I'm, able to develop an offer, or I have something that I can pre-sell or sell to you that's really going to
Yeah.
serve what it is that you're looking
And
for.
and I want to highlight, you brought up a really good point. If it's a topic that is sensitive, you're not going to get a lot of engagement, and that is okay. So you're going to want to invite people to message you privately. You're going to want to invite them to your email list where you can have a little bit of more of a personal connection with them. So if it's a very sensitive topic, don't ask questions like, oh, what's your biggest weight insecurity or what's your darkest, you know, alcohol moment or whatever. Like, obviously, we want the questions sometimes too to be positive and uplifting. So switch it around because people are more open to sharing stuff like that that's lighter. Or, as if it is a really sensitive topic, know that there are silent viewers. So my clients are usually never the ones who engage on my posts. They say, "Oh, I've been reading your posts or I followed you for 2 years," and I had no idea because they never engage. But just know, still doing the content consistently, still trying to engage your people, asking questions, you will build those touch points and people will be, you know, silently watching and they may end up being a client even though they didn't engage with you.
I have a lot of I've had my own experiences with this. I've seen my clients do this, but you kind of brought up when people are like, it's not working. I sent that one email, I did that one post, and they decide that I'm just going to pivot. There must be something wrong with my offer. There must be something wrong with my niche. I'm going to switch everything. So I guess this is maybe a two-part question, but how do you know when it's time to pivot? Or maybe how do you coach people through sticking with something long enough to actually see those results instead of some of those immediate
Mm.
results we sometimes get advertised on Instagram of, immediate 10K months the day we start our business type of thing.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea to track and try to do something for 90 days. And I think it's good every week to ask what went well, what didn't go well, what do I want to do more of, what do I want to do less of, what's indicating it could work. Like, did maybe you didn't get a client, but maybe you got an inquiry. Well, that is a step in the right direction. So paying attention to that and fairly tracking, meaning did you do it or not? And are you doing it every week or not? And I think the other thing to remember is that nowadays the sales cycle is a little longer. People need more touch points to build trust. It used to be like 7 to 17 touch points. And when I say touch points, I mean like they see your post, you guys have a message together, you guys like each other's posts again, like little interactions. Nowadays, it can be up to 77, right? So making sure that you are being consistent and volume too will be your friend. Meaning, if I only send 2 connection requests a week on LinkedIn, it's not going to go very well. You want to be sending, I mean, if you can, there you can send up to 100 per week on the free account and 200 if you have Sales Navigator. So ideally, you're doing some volume or you're having a virtual assistant at some point help you with that when you can. And I help clients with that. But I think that that's going to be important as well.
So it's not necessarily that, your offer didn't work or you don't have the clarity there. It's just recognizing that, the phrase that gets tossed around these days a lot is that we're in a trust recession, that it's just taking people longer to say yes. They may not be buying as quickly as they had in the past. So maintaining that relationship, that pre-offer, we have some kind of nurture in there perhaps before we just jump straight into like, are you ready to buy my thing?
Yeah, and there are ways to speed up the trust process, having a really great pre-offer or lead magnet like we talked about, or doing a collab where your partner introduces you as an expert to their audience that builds instant trust. Or, with your posts, if you're really willing to tell their story and speak in their own words, things can go faster. So there are levers you can pull, but yes, you do need to realize, sometimes for especially if you sell something high ticket, it can be a 90-day buy cycle or, 6 months before somebody decides they're ready.
Yeah. So if we're getting out there, we're connecting, we're trying to engage with our audience, we're trying to get some responses from them, build that curiosity and intrigue and help lead them into our pre-offer and eventually the offer. In that, there's a possibility they're going to say no, they're going to block us, delete us, they're going to have maybe a negative response. Like I imagine that some of your clients come to you with worries or concerns or like fear of being salesy or icky in
Mhm.
these things. How do we work around that?
Yeah. Well, the way I see sales is it is an invitation to solutions, right? And we're not skipping the other steps of the 4 steps of client attraction going straight to the sale because it does feel icky if you're assuming someone needs your product. But if someone shared with you they have a goal or a challenge or something they're working on and you gave a freebie or value up front and they're, really wanting this result, it makes sense to naturally say, and if you're looking to go deeper, or and if you're looking for customized support with this, or I'm not sure if you're looking for customized support with this, but I do have some options if it makes sense to connect, right? So it's important to make sure. I think the reason why people feel icky about it is they skip steps. They think they have to go straight to like asking and pitching, which is not true. Or they feel like sales is begging for money, being a burden to others, convincing people, which is not how we want to define sales. I really like Dan Sullivan's definition, which is it is having someone emotionally and intellectually engaged in a solution that's right for them. And your job is to have a dialogue with them to see if it's right for them. Ask them the right questions, be curious, offer a solution to help, be unattached to whether or not they want it or not. But your job, your responsibility is to hold your people accountable to what they say they want.
I love that. I think that's a really great answer. And it's that kind of shifting of it's not just here where we're coming with a desperate energy or trying to take something from someone else. We're really also trying to give them, like you said, that accountability of saying, you want this, I have that solution to that problem, and it's here when we've kind of worked through whether or not it's right for you. Do you see any other like sales limiting beliefs or
Mhm.
common misconceptions among your clients when it comes to selling?
Yeah, I see them, want to escape the hard conversation. Meaning, let's say somebody's like, "Oh, I need to look at my finances and then I'll decide on coaching." A lot of times, many coaches just say, "Okay, bye-bye, talk to you soon." Versus we actually want to understand what is going on for this person and help them make the decision as easy as possible and help them come to either a yes or no. Because actually, it's really a disservice if you're leaving your calls in this, like, I don't know, we don't really have any next step plans. Like, we're not having a follow-up call. We don't really know. We're going to think about it. And so you want to ask, like, okay, help me understand, like, aside from the finances, is this something that you want to do? Get clear on that first. Or is it the finances are a scapegoat for this person and not tell you what they're really concerned about? Right? And we want to know what are their concerns and hesitations because we want to help them find a solution. And even if it's not our program, we still want them to leave the call feeling clear and better off than if they didn't talk to us. So I do dig into those questions. I do, I don't say, hey, well, you should do this XYZ to work on your finances so you can pay for this. Like, no. But if it is something you want to do, could we brainstorm? What if we did do a payment plan? What if we did spread out, the work or whatever? So I think a big mistake I see is people think that that's pushing. It's not. It's being curious, it's coaching, it's asking questions, it's helping someone find what they want to do or what they don't want to do and not stay stuck in the loop that they've been in where it's this indecision land. I don't want to do anything scary outside of my comfort zone, so I'm just going to keep kind of looking into my options and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that. Again, if we're here to be coaches, like asking the kind of questions and helping people have with, through good questions, we can help people have the insights they need to either decide this is right for us or it's not, and being unattached to that outcome, as you had mentioned before. Hailey, earlier you mentioned that we would need like I don't know 10 times as many touch points as we used to need. And I'm curious, isn't necessarily a fair question because I don't know that you're necessarily going to be able to predict, but I'm just curious, do you have any ideas of how sales might change, in the new year or maybe in the next
Mhm.
coming years?
Yeah, well, I think that nowadays with AI, we need to create more experiences for people, and people need to understand that our work, if you're a coach, is not just information cheerleading and, giving them guides and tips and things like that. People need to know that what you do is transformative and goes deeper than information they can look up because information nowadays is not valuable anymore because we can use ChatGPT, we can, ask it anything. So make sure you're communicating the before and after day-to-day life of your clients and how your coaching is experiential and how it is a relationship or community based, or there's, a part to it that's more emotionally connecting with somebody. And I also think that we need to, when it comes to like Instagram and all that kind of stuff, I think it's really important to master focus on the majors and not the minors. Like Instagram's going to have a lot of changes in the new year and the algorithm's always changing and you can do what you can to keep up with that. But as long as you are doing the consistent things, the principles of sales and marketing of showing up, building trust, addressing objections in your posts, being able to share social proof, things like that, you are gonna still see success, even if you're not keeping up with the latest, algorithm things. And remember, if your goal is to not be an influencer and to actually be a coach with clients, you are going to post things that don't get a ton of engagement. Like I'll share a testimonial post, and most people don't really, generally that's not going to be a viral post. But the people who are thinking about working with me do need to see that, and they like seeing that. And they may not engage, but those posts, that kind of content does lead to discovery calls and people reaching out.
Yeah, and like you had said before, it's not just because we don't see necessarily those tangible steps forward doesn't mean we're not moving someone along those, I guess that
Mhm.
pipeline or along the customer journey to connect with us better, understand better what we can do and what we're able to do for them. So, Haley, you've given so many tips and such great advice today. I wonder how would you kind of distill all this into a Thrive in 5 to take away?
Yeah, well, step one is determine what has worked for you in the past for connecting with new contacts who are in your target audience. And if you have nothing, think about where you want to start, meaning what are your strengths? Do you like being on video? Do you like going to things in person? Consider that when making your decision for your first connection platform or connection method. So brainstorm what's going to be my connection method that I'm going to start with. Number two, brainstorm your intentional questions. So, am I going at the angle of finding collab partners? In which case, I need to ask, are they open to collaborating and what kind of collabs do I want to do? Or do I need to focus right now on potential clients and what question am I going to ask to engage them? Then, step three is decide how you can give value up front and ideally grow your email list because if your people hate social media, that is going to be the best way to keep nurturing people and to have a deeper relationship and be seen by them. And then so think about what could be that catchy pre-offer that most of your people are wanting and needing. And then step four, ask yourself, how can I make that transition smooth after my freebie? And invite to the sales phase. Can I have an email that does that or a couple emails? Can I ask a certain question and follow up with people and see how the freebie went and offer a call, a free call, right? Think about how you're going to transition. And bonus tip for anybody listening, if you have sales blocks, ask yourself, what do I think is standing between me and my next client? And determine what the mindset blocks are. And then ask yourself, either get coached on them or find out, okay, what else is true about this? How could I see this differently? How can I start to work on this and build the reps so I feel more comfortable? Things like that. And if you are wanting to have a checklist to follow for client attraction, and actually one of the tips within this training my client used, and she was able to get a guest collab that got her 500 email subscribers, 12 group program clients, and 3 private clients. So if you want to check it out, it's at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction, and it will take you through what to do.
Yeah, and also as you mentioned before, like there can be such small nuances in these things. So having someone who really, has crafted some kind of questions and things to think through and those helping you through those mindset shifts can be really helpful because again, this is such a nuanced area where we really want to make sure that we're coming off the way that we want to and not in that sleazy salesy icky way. So well, I'll have the link to that lead magnet in the show notes, but if Haley, if people want to connect with you elsewhere, where should I send them?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Hailey_Rowe, HAILEY_ROWE, HaileyRowe.com, the Health Coach Nation podcast, which Marcy is going to be on, and all of the other platforms. I'm pretty much everywhere, but those are the main ones.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been great.
Thank you.